So tell me about your experience with war-related intergenerational PTSD.
Okay, Crystal, thank you for asking, and I think I can give you some just really general experiences. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but I'm an expert with PTSD, but not necessarily intergenerational, but I can tell you what my experience has been. I've had clients who have come into me to see me, and when I ask them the usual family history, which is what you do when you're a social worker, you ask about the family of origin. And I find out that many of my clients who come have had what we would call complex PTSD, because they started out their life living with someone who had PTSD, and the hypervigilance and the hyperarousal state that either the mother or the father, and most of the clients I've had have had this experience with their fathers who were vets. It would impact them in a way that there would be a physiological response, very much as young children, that they needed to be hypervigilant, and that they just had a sense of unsafeness. And then what I usually would end up seeing people when they're in their 20s or their 30s or their 40s. And many other things will have happened to them since then that would be traumatic. But the beginning of that hyperarousal state happened from living with a parent who had not been able to process their trauma from war, or their trauma of re-entering from war, coming back into a society that did not help them process their wounds. And I do believe it creates a place or a space that's unsafe for the rest of the family. And you see it exhibited in the anxious ADD child, the anxious ADH child sometimes, and you see it in the nail-biting child, and you see it in the bed, the kids who are afraid to sleep because they don't know, what's going to happen. One client has said she never knew when she came home her father would have all the doors locked and the windows closed, and they'd come home from school and they'd know Dad was having a bad day, and they were afraid to go inside. Let me see if I can remember anything else. I've had clients who mother would say Dad's having a bad day, and the kids never knew what that meant. It was just he was bad. He's having a bad day today. And the kids grew up not knowing until they were like teenagers that the bad day was remembering his soldier's experience. There were other people who grew up with mom and dad telling them that that's what was wrong with Dad. But the impact was still the same for the child. This child still had a lot of the hypervigilance, a lot of the hyperarousal, a lot of the physiological impact. Never having experienced war, they still experience the trauma and the constant fear and the hypervigilance, which they then took on to the rest of their life. There are people who are much more skilled at expressing this than I am. One of them is Edward Tick, and I'm really happy that Crystal's going to be talking to him soon. Bessel van der Kolk is another really good person to talk to about this. And who else do I know? Those are the folks I would go to for expertise.
Thank you.